Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I would like to thank you all for giving me your time and your attention. I am here to talk about one of the greatest issues the humanity has ever faced, which is the climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Barra Idrakhi Gunawan and I am the Prime Minister of the government's team. Welcome to the side of the house where we fully support local agendas rather than global agendas. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is an issue that needs to be tackled immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is a crisis. It is a disease that we cannot let it happen in front of our eyes. But sadly, in reality, the climate change is happening in front of our eyes. In 2024, ladies and gentlemen, most regions in Asia are experiencing severe heat waves, with temperature reaching more than 40 degrees Celsius. Can you imagine that, ladies and gentlemen? Not only that, in this year too, the world temperature has risen well over 1.5 degrees Celsius, well above the Paris Agreement. Should we let this all happen in front of our eyes? The answer is no. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 822 million people facing starvation due to the climate change, with 150 million children are facing stunting due due to the climate change. This is an issue that we need to find the solution. We need to tackle these issues immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here today to talk about how important it is to prioritize local agendas rather than global agendas. There are two main points that I would like to talk about in my speech. These two key points will make sure that we as a society are on the right track on solving the climate change issues. And these two key will highlight how important it is to utilize local government and local agendas rather than global agendas. My first issue I want to talk about is about the efficient and effective environmental regulations. Ladies and gentlemen, environmental regulations are important and crucial to make sure we could handle and tackle the climate change issues. Right and effective policies would make sure that the people would follow it, and it hopefully would reduce the climate change. And sadly, in reality, the environmental policies that has been made globally is inefficient and ineffective. Why is that? Let's take one example. Let's take one example from the Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement stated that we should not have the temperature reached more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. And what happened? It went above 1.5 degrees Celsius exactly in this year. That shows how ineffective and how inefficient those global regulations to tackle and handle the climate change issues. What we should do is we should let what we should do or we should let those local governments and local organizations to make their own policies. Why? One of the key reasons is that those local governments are way more closer and more transparent to their people than those global organizations. Is there any examples? Of course there is. One example is the city of Copenhagen. The city of Copenhagen was tasked to be carbon neutral by the year 2050. And what they did, they led their local governments to make regulations, and the result 42% of carbon emission reduction by the year 2020. That shows how effective it is if we let the local governments handle this issue. One more key thing to close it and to summarize all of it is the public awareness aspect. Ladies and gentlemen, public awareness is vital and important to make sure that the people would listen and would do action to solve this problem. And there's a study by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in America that public participation in energy efficiency program would rise 20 to 40% if it is done by their local governments. That shows how close the relationship of the people to the government, and how effective it is if we let those local governments to make their own policies and to do things by their own way, using methods to raise public awareness and to make efficient and effective policies. Those are my two key reasons of why we should let local governments do their own policies and do their own regulations. That's from me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your opinion, Mr. Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Vazhra Prince Aziz, and as the leader of opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, let me show you why this House fully supports on prioritizing global agendas rather than local agendas to solve the climate change crisis. Mr. Prime Minister, there are many flaws and weaknesses on local agendas to finish the climate change issues. The first one being the limited impact. I understand your point when you said that local movements allows for more innovative and effective approaches to be developed and implemented. But I want you to consider, while local actions are important, their impact on global emissions are limited. Local initiatives in cities like Copenhagen and Freiburg, while successful on a city scale, are insufficient to address global issues such as heat waves, temperature change, and natural disasters that have occurred all around the world. The UNEP Emissions Gap Report 2022 stated that even if all current national pledges and local movements are fully implemented, the world would still be on track for a 3.2 Celsius temperature rise by the end of the century. A concerted global effort is needed to make a meaningful attempt to solve the climate change issues. My second key point is regarding the inadequate financial and economic inequality. I see your point regarding the successful attempts of local agendas in solving environmental issues, but all the cities you have stated earlier are cities that come from a wealthy country with sufficient economic support. But in reality, the cities that suffer the most from climate change are cities from the regions of Asia and Africa with little to none financial support. They are unable to solve the climate issues due to the economic inequality and lack of financial support from the rest of the world. But with a structured global aids and movements, we could support and strengthen each other in solving the climate change issues. One of the many examples is the program of GCF or Green Climate Fund, which has funded 2.1 billion to more than 140 countries all around the globe. The GCF funding and technical assistance have enabled numerous amount of developing countries to undertake climate projects they would not have been able to afford on their own. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Vazhra Prince Aziz, for your wonderful and inspiring speech. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Billie Al-Ghazali, representing as the Deputy Prime Minister of the Prime Minister, Barra Idrakhi Gunawan. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to show you the importance of the local movements rather than global agendas to solve climate issues that has been stated by Mr. Vazhra. Mr. Vazhra, I can see your point when you say that local movements has a limited impact. But we of course cannot overlook one crucial thing about the global movements and regarding the climate change, which is its delayed and ineffective impact. Due to its complex structure and buoyancy, global agendas often involve lengthy negotiations, complex processes, and delayed implementations, which can be less effective in addressing urgent climate issues. One of the many examples is the Kyoto Protocol, which took years to negotiate and its impact was limited and inefficient. The protocol's limited success is evident as global CO2 emissions continue to rise, even reaching 49.4 billion metric tons in 2018. One other key issues regarding the global movement is that sometimes it adopts a one-size-fits-all approach that does not account for the specific needs of local communities. A UN report found that while some regions have made significant progress on climate action, others lag behind due to lack of resources and local adaptation. This shows the need for localized strategies to solve specific regional needs. Lastly, regarding your opinion about the lack of funding, I completely see your point, and I completely agree with you. Because that just shows how important local government are, and through right and fair fundings, local government could do wonders in tackling the climate issues. One notable example of a city from a developing country that has succeeded in tackling climate issues due to proper funding is Curitiba, Brazil. With national and international support, the city has now over 52 square meters of green space per inhabitant, one of the highest ratios in the world. In conclusion, I completely agree with Mr. Vazhra that global agendas are important, but the real implementation of the climate movement can only be realized and optimized through local movements and agendas. Prioritizing local agendas in addressing climate change leads to immediate impacts, enhancing environmental quality, in community engagement, and raising economic benefits. Local governments, by being closer to their communities, can implement effective measures and strategies that is more effective and will deliver quicker results. Building green and environmental friendly character could only be applied to local agendas by focusing efforts at the local level to combat climate change effectively.